All right. So, big question that I get often is Felicia, why do you not buy grains from Azure Standard? Or why don't you buy all your grains from Azure Standard? Because their pricing is so cheap. Why even bother purchasing from other places like Pleasant Hill Grain, Grand Teton Ancient Grains, Four Generations Organic Farms, all these other places? Well, let's dive into this today, y'all, because I got a lot of thoughts. I got a lot of thoughts to do. And this is a perfect thing to do on a podcast because this is the Grains and Grit Extra Gritty podcast, where this is an extension of the Grains and Grit YouTube channel, where I teach you all about real whole grains from a biblical perspective, how and why to be milling your own grains, myth busting with grains, giving you all things with grains. And this is the unfiltered, unedited podcast, hence extra gritty of Grains and Grit. So this is where I can get a little bit deeper. It's just like I'm sitting down with a friend, with some coffee, and we're just going to have a little chat. And I was thinking about doing this as a regular video. I'm like, no, no, I want to sit down like I'm talking to a friend to just discuss some things, discuss the things. Okay. And I can hear in my headphones that it is raining. So I apologize if this is coming through the headphones. I will try to get this out. But I'm also grateful that it's raining, y'all, because we have been in such severe, crazy drought here in Florida. And thank you, Lord, for the rain. We definitely need it. Okay. So answering your question, Azure, PhD, Grain Teton, Four Generations, Country Life, Living Foods, blah, blah, blah. I have all these places. So if you've ever been on my website, if you go to grainsandgrit.com/buy grains, BUY grains. I have a list of various companies, obviously not an exhaustive list of various companies of that I recommend buying grains. The reason why I don't have certain places is if I haven't personally tried the grains from them, I'm not going to recommend them because I like to try them out first. And so there's an exhaustive list that actually reminds me I need to update it. So need to go do that. But with that, a question. So on there, I have Azure Standard, and then I have like Grand Teton Ancient Grains, Four Generations, Organic Farms. I have Country Life Foods. All these other places for grains, and so people go and look, and they kind of have sticker shock, especially when they look at Azure Standard and see grains a certain price, and then go to these other places like, holy moly, why is it so much more expensive? Why would you ever send us to someplace else other than Azure? Fair enough. And I get it. So we're going to be talking about this today. So, a little bit of a backstory. I am here in Florida. So, Azure Standard is based in Oregon, and they are a drop type company. So, you can't order directly from them, but most people do it through drops, which means you place an order by a certain cutoff date each month. And then, based on where you live, they then bring like on a semi truck, it's through drivers, and you meet at a certain place at a certain time, and you get your order. Doing the drops like this, usually the point is, excuse me, is to save on shipping. That's a huge thing. But Azure also just has good prices overall. I will give you that. Azure has some amazing prices on things. Sorry, coffee break. So they do have good prices. That is legit. But it is through the drop shipment method where other companies are different, where they're kind of a bit more like your traditional online shopping. You order online, it ships to your house. And so I say that I mentioned that I'm here in Florida because it's only been in the past about 10 years or so that they've even been available here in Florida. So I have not, so I've, as far as how long Azure Standard has been around, I'm kind of more the recent ones. They are now completely throughout the US, but it took them a while to finish that. I think only in the past few years did they completely get all the way to the East Coast, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm still kind of new, new with this. And at the beginning, like as soon as, because when I heard of Azure and I realized how cheap they were, I was like, oh my word, I can't wait for them to get here. And soon after that, so within a couple years of me milling my grains, Azure came to Florida. And so I started buying my wheat berries from Azure exclusively. And I'm so thankful that I had them in Florida because and when I was getting them, this was before 2020. We'll get to you later. But at the time, they were significantly cheaper because I was ordering grains through Breadbecker's Co-op, which they also have a co-op drop type shipment. And they were the only option for me at the time to really get wheat berries. But with them, I had to order every quarter. and then still go and, pick up my grains, which was okay. But at the time, I think I was still kind of new and figuring out how much grains that I needed, all of that stuff. And so when Azure was here, not only were they cheaper, but I was able to order every month. So that way, if I just miscalculated or I forgot something, I wasn't having to wait an entire quarter. I could actually just order it each month, which was wonderful. And since they were so new, our drops were really small. They were also very predictable back then. They would tell you, okay, order cutoff, say by May 8th, and your shipment will be here by May 18th. Well, Tuesday, May 18th at 5:30 p.m. or whatever it was. And you knew what time that was when you were placing your order. And also back then, most likely when I ordered something, I would get it. So, and that's other things that we'll be getting to in a bit. So it was very different early on whenever I was first ordering like pre 2020 Azure Standard. And I was so grateful to have Azure because at that time we were dirt poor. Okay. Super, super poor. Money was very, very, very tight. And so the fact that I was able to save all that money with my grains, I was so thankful because I could barely afford it through bread and so now I actually kind of could afford it with Azure. So it definitely made eating healthier far more accessible for me, and so I am so grateful for Azure Standard because it allowed me to get something that was very hard for me to afford at that time. And they were also always clean wheat berries. They were shipping in bags. I would just put them in my buckets, put them in good containers, good lids. And I was getting like hard red, hard white, corn, my oats, those type of things I was getting from Azure. And that was actually the majority, mainly what I purchased from Azure were my grains. That was mainly what I would purchase from them. And then since then, I've discovered other things and they've definitely expanded their product line since then. So at the beginning, loved them, didn't have a problem. And then 2020 happened. Oh, Lord of mercy. 2020, COVID time, where everything got jacked up. All right, drink break again. Okay, so let's discuss 2020. Now, this is still before my YouTube channel, but one thing, so at the time, I was still definitely getting everything from Azure. I pretty much exclusively ordered from Azure Standard for many years because it worked for me. It was saving me that money. Money was still pretty tight, and I was still able to make those drops pretty easily because, again, they were predictable. But then 2020 happened, and the world lost their minds, and everyone was now online shopping. And on top of that, everyone was shopping from home, so people were getting used to the, picking up. No one wanted to go to the store anymore, and so I think that was an appeal with Azure Standard, is they discovered that for that reason, where they were, sorry, hit my mic, were picking up things from, a drop type element aspect. Did not have to go in the stores where maybe those stores were making you mask up. Maybe you just were not wanting to go into the grocery stores for whatever reason. And, Azure Standard was there with these drop type shipments. So that was one big change. But then also around those times, people were discovering milling their own grains because flour was now going off the shelf, and now people were into sourdough, and then there's no flour, oh, we can mill our grains, and now blah, it was a perfect storm. So while I'm sure Azure Standards business skyrocketed with COVID because of the model of how people are getting their groceries, that's when I think this is all my opinion and all observations on my end. Now, I am not throwing Azure Standard on the bus by any means whatsoever. I still recommend them. But at that moment, I think what happened is their popularity skyrocketed, and you just can't overnight change, increase your ability to ship products, to deliver products, to have products in stock. I mean, especially the world has shut down. So they were probably already having problems getting inventory of things. And then on top of that, they probably now had a huge increase all of a sudden of customers, but their infrastructure, you can't just like build a factory overnight. You can't just, increase the amount of trucks and equipment overnight. That just isn't possible. So that's why I'm not throwing Azure under the bus by any means. But I think what happened during that time is increase. So now whenever I was placing orders, I often would not get my grains. I very, very often would not get what I was ordered. And now I'm up the creek without a paddle. And this also kept happening. Their shipments now, the drops were, we were having severe delays with the drops. The times would change last minute. And this was also just during a crazy time anyway. But then about, I think it was in 2021, again, I'm in Florida. By this time, we were open as a state. I know other states were not open, but we were still having so many problems with the actual deliveries, with the drops, both with product, you just not getting products that you ordered because they would sell out. But then the drivers would be 3 and 4 hours late to drops. 3 and 4 hours late, which was a huge issue for many people. And so, God bless any drop coordinators out there, mad scrambling trying to contact people. I know the drop coordinator at the time, like, she would take people's stuff home. I took over for her one night because her daughter was getting married and they were late. The driver was about 4 hours late that night. I kind of took over. It was a huge drop. Some people had to leave, they have other plans or they got to get to work or whatever it is. So thankfully I have a big massive van, and at the time I was actually renting closer to town. And so I was able to take a lot of people's orders, and we arranged for them to pick up. So God bless drop coordinators and other people at drops who are willing to help people out with that, because that was just a crazy, insane time. And I remember at that time, many people's, it was their first experience with Azure. And I had explained to them, like, this is not necessarily normal. This has changed since COVID. Okay. And that was just the reality of things. Now, since then, things settled down because I think eventually, they were able to get the drivers and the infrastructure in place to kind of at least get the actual drops better. And maybe it was just us. It might have just been our route that was having issues, because they were major issues. I backed off from ordering Azure every month to about every quarter because of that, because I couldn't just be away from home and, yeah, just for 3 and 4 hours, not knowing when I was able to come back. And so I actually dropped off how often I was ordering from them to roughly every quarter. And that's kind of how I've been since. Now, since then, I soon after that, with the major, well, actually, no, I had already started my YouTube channel when that really big fiasco happened, where it was like 4 hours late. And that was the worst one ever. Like, that was the worst one. And so I'd already started my YouTube channel, and I will give full disclosure with my YouTube channel. So with YouTube, that's when I started discovering other brands, okay, that I didn't know was out there. I started discovering other people. And yeah, companies, or farmers, they'll send me their grains. They want me to try them out because I do review them. So now I'm starting to get grains from other companies that they're either shipping to me, or I might get a credit. Or, I do have my sponsors, depending on who they are, and I get grains from them. And so honestly, right now, I don't have to buy certain grains because I'm either getting it because of what I do on YouTube. And that's just the reality. So a main reason why I'm not getting grains from Azure is I don't have to. Okay. Now, some grains I do get if I just don't have a main source, or I need some more of a certain grain and Azure Standard has it. No, I'll buy it from them if it happens to be when it's the time that I'm placing an order. Because again, I'm mainly ordering from them about every quarter or so. But grains is no longer the main thing that I get from Azure Standard. I actually get other things, which we'll get to in a bit. So my main sources of grains right now are like Four Generations Organic Farms. They're my go-to, like the hard red and hard white wheat berries, because I love them and they're awesome. They're shipped to my house, and so I love getting from them. I love getting my ancient grains from like Grand Teton Ancient Grains, and then like Pleasant Hill Grain is kind of ones I might get, like my soft white wheat, ones like that, kind of the filler ones. And now I do still love getting like rice and corn and like oat groats from Azure Standard. I do not go through them as often. So, like if I buy, 50 or 100 pounds from Azure for those, it's going to last me quite a bit. Also, with corn, I'm now getting that more from Hacienda because I'm getting the heirloom organic Mexican corn. So love that. And their masa arena. And I usually mainly use corn for two things, and that is grits, which is just a regular dent corn, or I'm using it for authentic Mexican food. So to get it from Hacienda straight from Mexico, bonus points. So I'm just getting them from different places because this YouTube channel has, excuse me, while I move everything, has exposed me to different places and I have more opportunity. That's the beauty of what I do. And I'm so grateful for that. Um, but let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's just talk about pricing and other things as well, because we're just going to compare Azure versus like everyone else, because Azure does have a unique model. They're even slightly unique from Breadbeckers. So Breadbeckers also has the co-op system, but it's only every quarter, and it's only limited right now to more of the southeastern United States, where Azure Standard is more nationwide. So that's kind of why I'm not quite mentioning Breadbeckers, because Breadbeckers is heavily focused on the grains. I haven't purchased from them in years because I just simply haven't had to. That's it. We do have co-ops here. We do have those drops, but it's just I'm just not a good planner, and ordering quarterly is, in that case anyway. It's mainly just I don't have to. I don't have to be honest. Like I don't have to. Um, and so Breadbreakers is one, but again, limited southeastern United States. So it depends on where you live, but you can check them out, breadbreakers.com, to see if they have one in your area, because they offer grains in bags or buckets. So that counts here, because this is one of the main difference between Azure and other people is Azure Standard, you can only buy grains in bags, period. Whether it is 5 pounds or 50 pounds, they are only coming in bags, which means whenever you get those grains, you have to immediately put them in like buckets or good containers. You need a good container to keep out any pests and any moisture. That's very important when it comes to your grains. So immediately when you get them, you need to go ahead and put them in a good container to help that. Whereas these other companies, especially when you're buying the larger amounts, they're usually being shipped in buckets. And with buckets, they're usually sealed. Pretty much all of them throw in oxygen absorbers. Some of them also have Mylar bags with the oxygen absorbers in sealed buckets. And and so you're able to just immediately store them. You don't really have to do anything with them. So that's one big reason right there, comparing apples to apples with Azure and other companies, is how are the grains packaged? Bags or buckets? Because with the buckets, you have the expense of the buckets, the expense of the oxygen absorbers, possibly Mylar bags. So compared right there, because that alone can affect the price. Even when you look at it from like Breadbeckers, there's a price difference if you order 50 pounds in bags compared to the 5-gallon bucket of grains. There's going to be a price difference. Period. Drink break again. Okay, so that's one of the big difference that can contribute to price between the grains. Another huge difference with the price has to deal with shipping. Now, many of these companies offer free shipping, but y'all, shipping is not free and grains are very heavy. So, my opinion, and I'm pretty certain I'm correct about this, is they are including at least some of the shipping in the price of the grains. And so some may include just a little bit, some may put all of it in. I'm not sure who does what, to be honest. But bottom line is, I think that's a big reason for that, because also Azure is the drop system. Because if you did try to order from Azure directly, you would be paying for shipping, and it is obscene. Now, you do pay for shipping when you order from Azure, but it is significantly cheaper because it's coming on a big semi truck. They have huge orders. They're just being delivered by private drivers that they hire as assuming subcontract. I don't know. That doesn't matter. But bottom line is, they're coming on a semi truck. Okay. And with that amount of orders, then you're paying the driver the semi truck, and that's able to get those shipping prices down. And that's why no matter what you order from Azure Standard, now it is based by weight. So, order a ton of grains, or I think it's based on weight. Is it based on weight or cubic feet? I want to say weight. I could be mistaken, but bottom line, that's why I think they're able to keep their prices down, is because their shipping is just cheaper so long as you're ordering it through the drop. Where other companies, you're ordering it, order online, comes shipping straight to your house. So that also probably is partially a reason why we might see the range of prices with grains. Is it just, I think, depends on what the company's wanting to put in for shipping. Also depends on where they're at, and also the type of grains that you are buying. Pricing definitely changes based on the grains that you're buying. You want your modern grains are going to be cheaper than your ancient grains, and heritage grains is probably going to be somewhere in the middle. Organic is going to be more expensive than natural, than non organic grains. These are all factors that take part of the price, but I think the main price range is due to the shipping. That's my personal opinion about that. And it just makes sense. It really does. Now, other things to consider, big, big, big difference is you're going to end up paying something. You're going to end up paying either in time or in money, and also a little bit of the guarantee. So here's just the reality of how it is ordering from Azure Standard right now, and why ordering from Azure Standard has become a huge, like, far more inconvenient for me than it used to be. And I would say pre 2020. It's just been different since COVID, as many things, but definitely different since COVID. And this is why. First of all, with Azure Standard, as many people know, just because you place the order online does not guarantee that you're going to get that item. Okay. And you're not going to know that until after the deadline and everything's already been shipped. And then that's when you find out, like, oh, shoot, I now am not getting my hard white wheat berries that I was really, really needing this month. And now you have to find another source. Now, I have not seen this as much lately since for the past couple years. I think that part has kind of settled down. Although, like about 2 or 3 years ago, they were completely out of hard white wheat and everyone was freaking out, and that's why I always suggest that you have more than one source to buy your grains from, because there is a natural cycle to things. Maybe you got them in between harvest time. Maybe all of a sudden there was a huge increase in interest in a certain grain, and now Azure and other companies are sold out. So you need to always have multiple places that you can get grains from, so you're not left out like that. But that is one thing with Azure, is it's not a guarantee you're going to get it. Now, lately, I've noticed most likely you're going to get it, and they will. And if it tells you this item is most likely going to be out of stock when it ships, it's most likely going to be out of stock. So I would prepare for that. And that usually is accurate right now when I've ordered. If it says most likely will be out of stock, I add it to my cart anyway, and it's been out of stock. But you never know. You never know. It doesn't hurt to add it. It just won't ship. You're not charged if it's not shipped. So that's one thing with Azure, as opposed to if you were to just order from like anyone else, typical online shopping. If it's in stock and you order it, you pay for it, it's going to get to you. It's going to be shipped to you. Okay. Unless, USPS, FedEx, or UPS loses it, you're going to get it. So that is the convenience of ordering outside of Azure. And also, you can order anytime with other companies. You're not having to wait for the cutoff. You're not having to wait for that one time to go pick up your order each month. You can order whenever you want with other companies. So whatever is convenient for you. Now, that leads to another thing, and that is the drop system. So how it is with Azure now, it used to be pre 2020, as with many things, that before placing your order, you would know exactly when you needed to pick up your order. So you could look at your calendar and say, oh, no, actually, I have a doctor's appointment during that time, or whatever. Or you could put it on your calendar and know, like, okay, don't schedule a doctor's appointment during that time. So you could go pick up your Azure order. Now it's not like that. Now, when you place your order, it just states the week of May 8th, for example, the week of August 21st. There's a lot of days in a week, y'all. There's a lot of hours in that week. And that can be a problem to people because maybe you work, or maybe you have appointments, or your child has a baseball game, or whatever the case may be. So you're kind of having to place that, and you're not going to know until after your order has been placed and it has been shipped. And so now you're on the hook for those items, because now you have paid for those items. And if you don't pick up your items and no one else is picking them up for you, they send them back on the truck and you're still paying for them anyway, which I don't blame Azure for it. Duh, it makes sense. But I'm just saying, like, you better, it's a commitment. Like, you better pick up your order or arrange for that order to be picked up. Otherwise, you're out of luck. Okay. And so that's a really big deal for me right now. Since I used to be more flexible. Okay. I used to be more flexible. I used to have no money and I used to have time. Now I have no time, but I have a little bit more money, more money. And so right now that has become a huge inconvenience for me. And there have been times where I just haven't placed an Azure order because I looked at that week and thought, I have too much going on that I cannot reschedule. Y'all, my husband now, since he's been shot, we have these doctor's appointments that we've literally waited for months to get. I'm not changing that appointment. So for me, I won't do an Azure drop if I know that it's going to fall on that week because I can't risk not picking up my order. Now, in saying this, a way to get around this is to have a buddy. Okay. If make friends at the Azure drop, because do not assume your coordinator can just hold your order. Most likely they can't. For example, where we pick up our order, it is on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere. Okay. We ain't at someone's house picking it up. We look like we're like picking up some drugs or something from, from the some semi truck. People probably look at us like, what is a semi truck doing out here? Why are these people getting things from the back of it? Like literally dirt road in the middle of nowhere. Okay, that's where we pick up our order. And so it's not a guarantee. Like our coordinator can't take anyone's order. They are not able to take anyone's order. Some coordinators are. You need to ask in advance, okay, and let them know I have frozen things, I have cold things. See if they're able to do that. I have had drop coordinators in the past where they were able to take my order. Praise God for them. But that's not a guarantee. So don't assume it because that coordinator can say they're not here. They may call you if you don't answer or you can't pick it up. It goes back on the truck, back to Azure Standard. Okay. And you still get charged. So you need to have a buddy. And that just may be a friend who's picking up your order for you. And that's totally fine for them to do. Just let it be someone that you trust that's going to pick up your order, make sure you got everything. So that's one thing that I do recommend if you are wanting to order from Azure a lot, have a buddy. Okay. And y'all can flip flop. Maybe you just choose to do that anyway. Okay. You pick up this month, I pick up next month. But I do recommend having a plan B just in case you cannot make those drops. So right now, I don't have that option because of and that's mainly because of just where my drop is. People there don't live by me. And I'm not ordering as often enough. So it's just, for me, it's not that big of a deal. It's okay. It's okay. So that is a huge thing that needs to be considered with Azure Standard. Hopefully, this will somehow change, but I do not know. I've been seeing this for a while. And so, mainly that alone is one of the main reasons I don't put in orders all the time with Azure. It's mainly just a convenience for me. And it's just me. And it may be just fine for you. And maybe your drops are more predictable. This is how it is on my drop with our route. This is just how it is for us. So maybe it's different for you. And again, I'm not knocking Azure for this, but it's just the reality of it. Okay. I still recommend Azure. And if you love them, stick with them. Okay. But for me right now, I need grain shipped to my house so I don't have to leave my house. Okay. And I need a guarantee and I need them to be here. Now, in saying that, there are some things that I absolutely love getting from Azure Standard. The main go-tos that I get, and I stock up when I get them, are my butters because they have an amazing price with their butters. It's good quality, and I love getting butter from them. And they have different brands depending on what you want. I get my salted and unsalted, and I buy them by the case, and I stock up. Honey is an excellent price. I love getting the gallon size honey from them. Now, I do have local sources, but they are just a better price and they're in gallon size. It's not very easy for me to get. I don't have any sources for gallons, some half gallons, but not the gallon size. And it does save me money to get it from them. Honey is expensive. And so Azure has an excellent price with their honey, and they have different varieties as well. So my butters, my honey, my oils, I like getting from them. So like olive oil, my extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil. They like have all the oils. They don't have peanut oil, and I love peanut oil for frying. But I can get that locally. Like I can get it at a Publix. That's not a big deal. So my oils, my butters, my haze. If you notice, like my higher price items, they just have really good pricing for those items, and I love getting it. They actually have great supplements as well that we've been using, and I have no reason to think they're not working. And I have used some of their supplements before, no issues. But again, I sometimes do get grains from them, but I mainly dried beans. I do love getting dried beans from them. I go through dried beans, slower than I do my wheat berries, so I can stock up. I get those. So that's those are things that I like getting. So I do still get grains from them. Now let's discuss the cleanliness of the grains. Personally speaking, I've never had an issue with their grains. I know some people have had issues, and I mainly see this with your quote modern grains. So hard red, hard white, soft white wheat. Those are the main ones that I've seen people talk about it may not being as clean. Now, I do know several months ago they came out where they did kind of upgrade their cleaning machines. And I haven't seen as much about the any cleanliness problems since then. Again, I'm not really paying attention to it as much, but when I've seen it, and I haven't really been seeing it, I think, since they've changed their machine. So hopefully it's gotten better since then. Let us know in the comments below. But do know I've never had a problem with like their ancient grains, corn. Again, I personally have never had a problem with the cleanliness of their grains. So yeah, and I've years been ordering from them. And so that's just my personal experience. Maybe it's changed for you, but that is another thing with other companies that I know, like Pleasant Hill Grain Teton, 4 generations. Definitely never had a problem with their grains. Always super clean grains, maybe from other places as well. So that's another thing about Azure. Again, not me personally, but I've heard of other people, or I haven't heard of it from these other companies, and I haven't experienced it myself. So take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, it's honestly, I like Azure, and I think they have an excellent model. I am so grateful for them because I do think that they allow organic foods, more natural foods, to be more accessible to people, which we certainly need. The pricing is good. And if that's what you can afford and you're satisfied with them, stick with Azure Standard. Okay. Don't be switching just because, you see me or someone else talk about these other companies. If it's working for you and you love them, do it. If you want to, get grain shipped to your house and you want to try other people's grains, do it. Again, have multiple sources for your grains because there comes a time where they may run out with someone and not someone else. So always have multiple sources. Drink break again. Hold on. Mm. Okay. So, but yeah, I just, it's just something that's been on my mind, and I get asked about this. And again, I still recommend Azure, just like I recommend PHG, Fortune, Grand Teton, all these other places. Um, and again, my website is not an exhaustive list. It's just what I definitely know personally from personal experience, and that's what I like to recommend to y'all. But yeah, let me know your thoughts below. Let me think. I think I've covered everything. Again, for me, it really comes down to the time, and I'm already driving like 45 minutes to my drop. It's one thing if I live 10 minutes from the road from like where the drop was, and I could just like, oh, I can just shoot out really quick. Yeah, that's not my case. Like anywhere I go, it's like it's a trip. Pack snacks. Not really, but like, it's a plan. I have to make a plan to leave the house to go to these places. And that's really what it is for me. I would love to know your thoughts below. Where do you like to buy your grains? If you do like Azure Standard, if you do order from them, let us know what you like about them, what you like or love about any companies. So this is helpful for y'all. Let's open up this discussion so other people can get ideas and all those things. But otherwise, I was glad to sit down and chat with y'all my thoughts about all of this. And if you have any questions, let me know, comments below. And as always, I hope that y'all have an absolutely wonderful day. Go bake something with some freshly milled grains. And I love y'all, and I'll talk to you later.